John Cena in a dress
Yeah.
when he's supposed to be the most jacked stud of the world. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that? So yeah, 100% there's humiliation rituals and people are willing to sell themselves for a bag. Pretty disappointing.
It is weird because I sometimes look at these people, I'm like, hang on, how did they go from like being kind of semi-famous, being in a few films or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like they're everywhere. Like they're hosting these big shows, they're in all the biggest films.
Did you watch the Kevin Hart interview where there was he was interviewing this girl, forget the name, you can run the clip on it, and long story short, it's like, oh yeah, they pay people off, or they pay people off to stay quiet, and then Kevin Hart on the show, he's like, shh, 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 shh. They're listening. Like, okay, who's listening? Whoever that is, they have a lot of control and they have a lot of power. And at the end of the day, whether you look at the history of Disney, whether you look at the history of Hollywood, a lot of these organizations are just psyops to control society. So yeah, that's why I don't watch a ton of movies. Take things with a grain of salt. Don't watch the news. If you look at the news outlets, most of them are controlled by a couple families, a couple billionaires, and most people are just spending all time watching somebody who's reading off of a teleprompter, right, and assuming that puppet is telling you the truth when it's just merely one narrative. It's a crazy world we live in.
So where do you get your information from? If you want to know something about a particular topic, where do you go to?
I mean, I think nowadays a lot of it is cross-referencing information. I think Telegram is one of these platforms where censorship isn't prevalent, just like it would be on Instagram or on YouTube or on Facebook. And now X is pretty good on censorship. I remember back in the day when Elon had just acquired X, there was something called the Twitter files, where they basically showcased how keywords were being blocked, certain individuals were blacklisted, and these were requests by government entities. It actually just took place in Brazil recently, where I think it was one of these federal judges was trying to ban people off of X, and Elon said, fuck you, we're not banning them. And they basically had to go offline in order to, in Brazil, in order to not have legal consequences. So there's definitely a lot of government intervention when it comes to controlling the narrative, because if you control the narrative, you control reality, because the narrative equals perception, and perception is what everybody kind of bases their worldview on. So if you can control the narrative, you control people's worldview. That's why I was talking recently with one of my buddies who used to work regular 9 to 5 in the UK, and then he started doing digital marketing online, digital nomad, and started making more money. And he's like, the people in the UK, for example, they're so enclosed into a system that they don't understand the opportunities that are out there. They think that just working for £1,500 a month is like your standard. How are you supposed to live on £2,000 a month in London? People are living basically in poverty. You look at Canada right now with their 66% taxation on capital gains, and people think that that's the standard because they only have a select set of information to go off of. But the internet is the democratizer of opportunity and the democratizer of information. So these platforms like Telegram that are helping prevent censorship, or you look at the likes of Rumble, now you look at the likes of X, wherever that ends up being. These are kind of these combatants to government agencies coming in and trying to control the narrative. And I understand it as a government, if you're trying to control 1 billion people and you have to keep a certain narrative in check, or you have other governments come and try to push counter policy or counter narrative, it can get quite dangerous. So at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is critical thinking for yourself, and evaluating the facts at hand, and understanding that most people don't have the best interest in mind for you. They have their own interest and their own agenda. So you need to ask yourself, what is the source of information? Who's the originator of the source of information? What's the origin point? And are they telling the truth? And you evaluate it through cross-referencing information. So a lot of these conspiracies end up being true, believe it or not. But yeah, just gotta level up, continue doing your own thing. And I think the most important thing is understanding that regardless of what's taking place in the world, if you can continue leveling up, having a phenomenal network, and understanding how to monetize your skill sets, it's very hard to get screwed over, because we live in a very interconnected world. We met through the internet. If it wasn't for the internet, you probably wouldn't be living in Dubai. I would have probably not been here. And the democratizing of opportunity happens through the ability to bypass censorship